It's a mindset of being AI powered, of seeing impact gaps in the world and solving them. It's a mindset of, instead of pulling from knowledge of the past, to be able to use AI to give you context to make decisions. It's being connected with humans. It's being the ability to take autonomy over your work and your actions.
Welcome to the Humanity Code Conversations. I'm Heidi Lawrenson, and today we'll explore another perspective on intentionally shaping the future with AI, where our technology amplifies our shared humanity rather than diminishes it. I'm so looking forward to today's conversation because I've got two guests with me who are going to shift your thinking about what's possible with AI, with human empowerment at the core. They both have seized the gift of AI to positively transform not only their lives, but those around them. And they're going to humble you because between the two of them, they've lived just over 40 years and they're a decade apart. Hannah Grady Williams is the founder and CEO and self-proclaimed chief rebel of DeSkills, a company working to turbocharge teens with the power of AI, giving them the tools and support to turn their passions into impact projects, giving them real-world experience before stepping foot onto a college campus or into the real world. Hannah closed deals in a blue pickup truck at age 12, graduated college concurrently with high school at age 18, and wrote a best-selling book, A Leader's Guide to Unlocking Gen Z, by age 25. She is redefining the relationship between education and work for the emerging generation. To illustrate and personify the incredible work and new possibilities for youth that Hannah has brought into the world, she's joined today by one of the students who participated in DeSkills. Mahealani Jackson is a 17-year-old superstar who, as you will see, also has the wisdom and experience of someone decades beyond her years. The title of a recent LinkedIn article she wrote, first of all, how many high school students are writing LinkedIn articles, sums her up pretty well. It's titled, I Was Failing School, Now I'm a Business Owner at 16. Mahealani has experienced both the power of AI mastery and the power of self-mastery, doing so to achieve the power of making positive impact. Welcome, Hannah and Mahealani. Thank you so much for what you're doing, and thank you for being here. Gen Z has perhaps the most at stake in this stage of our human development, so I'm grateful to get your perspective today.
Heidi, we're so glad to be here. And I have to tell you, since you and I met a few months ago, this moment is coming full circle because Mahea and I, this is the second podcast we've ever recorded together. And I just cannot wait to be able to share what DeSkills is working on, what is happening with AI-powered humans, and to not be it just be me and it coming out of my mouth, but to have an amazing student here, a rebel student who is the example of who we all want to be working with and seeing our kids grow up to be. So thank you so much for having us.
Oh, absolutely. And totally 100% agree. I'm so grateful that you're both here. Hannah, let's start by setting some context. We'll talk a little bit more about DeSkills in a bit, but if you could just kind of define Gen Z and what sparked your interest, your focus on them and AI.
So just looking at years, first of all, Gen Z is approximately ages 13 or 14, depending on where you put the cutoff, all the way up to age 28. So I'm roughly at the top end of Gen Z, but I'm the oldest of 7 siblings, 7 kids, all from the same 2 parents. And my youngest sister is 9. So she's actually a part of Gen Alpha. But the way I like to think about all of us, me and Mahea included, is we are native digitals. And instead of lumping us into terms like Gen Z or millennials or Gen X, the fundamental description of native digitals, and that I spent a wonderful number of years getting to help companies understand and redefine their recruiting and retention strategies around, is this concept of the native digital human. And what that simply means is if you think about a native human of any country, let's say China or India or, Uzbekistan, when you're a native of a country, you know things about that culture that if I, 26 years old, were to go into that country and try to become, someone who lives there, I might learn the language. I might learn how to cook the food. I might, assimilate to some things, but I'm never going to be a native of that culture, of that country. There are things I'm simply not going to experience because I'm not a native. That's like how we describe native digitals, is that there's a category of human now that is native to the digital world. And that simply means that we work, think, and play from an entirely different vantage point than someone who is what I would call natively analog, simply meaning that I would assume, Heidi, for you, for my parents' generation, yes, your experience is probably
guilty
the
as
opposite.
Charged.
Honestly, I kind of envy you, but having like the physical world first and the digital world as an enhancement is the experience most native analogs would say is true for them, versus for native digitals, our digital lives are primary and our physical lives or the world around us is secondary. And now we haven't even touched on what's going to happen with AI natives who are still literally babies right now and how that's going to shape the future.
Absolutely. Mahea, what are you seeing? What are the general attitudes that your fellow students, friends, et cetera, have toward AI? What are they? How do they think about it? What are they afraid of? What are they excited about? And Hannah, feel free to weigh in on any additional thoughts that you have.
I think personally, I mean, when it comes to AI, it's so surprising. I know because we often think that everyone thinks like we do, and I've been so surprised to hear that a lot of my classmates haven't even used ChatGPT. They haven't even tried it out. I'm like, it's been around for 2 years. You've never tried generating an image, doing something. A lot of people actually haven't even tried things out. Hannah did one of her book sprints where kids are able to build their own children's book with AI in 90 minutes at my school. And a lot of the kids, you would see some who could, use ChatGPT and do things, but a lot of them, weren't aware of these platforms even existing. They were confused, not really sure what the next steps were. And so it is a very interesting shift, especially because we are native digitals. My generation grew up with that, like Hannah said, the outer world secondary, which kind of sucks, but is amazing. It comes to new technology like AI coming out. So I think it is, when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's actually it's a little sad that not as many people are understanding the importance of it. But then too, it does give the people, like people who are AI powered, who have the skills, myself amongst the other students, Hannah's helping, like it makes it so much easier for us to acclimate to the new world that we're going into.
You're in high school, right? And we were working with high school students. Heidi, I may have sent you this study, or maybe you sent it to me. There was a really fascinating study that wasn't broad, but hopefully more research will be done on this. But the cursory study basically showed that middle schoolers are much, much more likely to speak positively about AI than high schoolers. And what I realized as someone who works with both middle and high schoolers and helping them become AI powered to create real projects is that middle schoolers haven't been put through 2 years of their school system, their teachers, their families even telling them that AI is only good for cheating, that it's only being used for negative things. So it comes at no surprise to me that middle schoolers, I believe the study said they were 3 times, something like that, more likely to be positively minded about AI. So long story longer, an example of a student like Mahea who has been through that as a high schooler and been bludgeoned with how bad and negative AI is, and to see her be an example of someone now helping not only her peers, but also her teachers and small businesses around her see the value of AI is something incredibly beautiful to me, because we're, even in the past 2 years, we're already having to go through a culture shift to make that type of learning accessible and to shift people's mindsets away from the complete negative side.
It is really incredible that so many people are still unaware And, that's why we're having these conversations. And, Mahea, you said, and Hannah, you also just said that, Mahea, in talking to others, is helping them understand the value. And Mahea, if you could just share with me, what do you see as the value? Like, what does AI bring to the world? What are the AI natives going to, really benefit from?
I think AI can bring pretty much anything to the world. Like that's what I think the thing about AI is that it also challenges our mindsets, right? We're so used to things only doing X, Y, and Z. You have an iPhone, but you can only download apps from the App Store. You can only do certain things with it. But this new tech that's coming out, AI, like it's so you can personalize it, you can create your own AI, it's machine learning, it's artificial intelligence, and so it is smarter than us. It can find new solutions to things. A lot of teachers and students, they think of ChatGPT as a cheating tool. I've told a teacher once before, like, she had an issue, and I was like, you never thought to like put that into like ChatGPT, because I assume everyone just asks a question sometimes.
Right. Yeah,
exactly. I was like, what? Oh, I never thought I could do that. And so I think a lot of us have this notion that like things can only be used for one thing. ChatGPT is a cheating tool. But what I see, I mean, AI in the bigger picture, right? With all the good things it can do for the world, medically, socially, you're bringing such amazing opportunities and education opportunities. I mean, ChatGPT can teach you things, learn about you, and make you a personalized fitness plan, lesson plan, totally different things to your learning style that can be shown around the country. People who may not have access to good education can now find AI tools, intelligence that is able to help accommodate them in whatever way they need.
What is your school like? What, in terms of, does everybody still think of it as the cheating tool?
Yeah, well, that's where it's a little off. My school is somewhere in between. I think a lot of schools were stuck in paralysis. Like me and Hannah had a meeting, and a lot of the schools, the biggest issue that came up was, yeah, but we just don't know how to train our teachers on it. Like, how are we going to go through the corporate training? And me and Hannah were like, well, you can't really, right? It's not like all these other tools. The second you train your teachers on it, there's a new model coming out, right? So we all have to learn together. That's part of the thing. And a lot of teachers are like, well, I don't know how this is going to work. What's going to happen? A lot of my teachers love AI. They are super interested in it. They don't know where to start. I've told them, like, just ask AI. And they're like, oh my God, that's so smart. But a lot of them, they don't
Look
even
at you educating the educators.
Literally, yeah. And I think my school, I think specifically, is a little bit stuck in a state of paralysis. I talked to one of the teachers. She said she was working on kind of an AI policy, but it really can be black or white. I've talked to, deans, and they've said like, oh, it is really cool. I definitely think it's important. And I said to them, like, employers are going to need this. I get it's important, but like we have to start doing something about it. And she just said, oh, I never really thought about that. And I think that the awareness part is they don't realize that like this is going to be such a game changer for my generation that it will like put us out of jobs if we don't know these type of skills. It's not like some new techie thing. It's like, no, the entire world is changing and we have to get on top of it as a society.
Yeah, let's talk about that. And Hannah, this may be where you're wanting to go, but kind of that future, right?
Well, Heidi, could I actually paint a picture for you for a second? Because this was beautiful. So Mahealani and I talked a few weeks about obviously the data that's coming out around 66% of employers saying they won't hire someone without AI skills today, right? As of this year. Imagine what that's going to be next year. So we started brainstorming next week.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
What we realized, going back, pressing rewind back to the summer of this year, when we started hearing things from teachers in response to that data, which was pretty much just paralysis and fear, is we realized we needed to create moments where teachers and students together could learn this technology in a way that sets a precedent and a model for how we should be equipping ourselves with more skills moving forward. And this is for the professionals listening as well, because the exact same experience could happen whether you're in a professional setting, if you're at a school. Here's what happened. So there was a conference this July in near Nahea I believe it was at the Hawaii Convention Center or somewhere close. Anyway, Mahea would know the details, but it's basically a conference happening in Honolulu. And the conference was for teachers, and most of these professional development days, it's all teachers. We decided to turn the tables on their head. So we had a breakout session called a bot sprint. And in this sprint, the goal was for teachers to build their own ChatGPT 4 bots. Now, the way we flipped the cards on its head was instead of the teachers coming in and hearing just from me, who was facilitating, we actually had students become the guides in the room. So we had students like Mahea, along with, I believe it was 8 or 9 students from a couple different schools, come into the room and serve as the teachers, so to speak, or the guides. And the teachers coming in became the students. And as I facilitated this bot sprint, we had 90 minutes. You could see when teachers first came in, they're looking around the room, like looking for the exits. They didn't know what was going on. They're scared.
They didn't want to be there.
Didn't want to be there. And you can see, whether it's a teacher or I've seen this in companies as well, where everyone's just getting used to this technology. So there's a lot of fear surrounding it. When I tell you that within the first 10 minutes, the students working with the teachers collectively together on these bots were able to produce some of the most incredible functional bots that help these teachers in their school days. That's not an exaggeration. We had teachers in, for example, a CTE department, which is career and technical education. We had teachers building a mock interviewer to help their students learn how to interview or practice interviewing before jobs. The teacher who built that said, "You will not believe the number of hours that this will save me instead of me doing all these personal interviews with students," right? I now have an assistant to help. And I could go on and on with examples. But in that 90 minutes, what happened was people went from skeptics to advocates, to evangelists for AI because they learned with the students. Now we've taken that entire model and said everything we do at DeSkills is about students and teachers together, or students and companies together. And I have so many examples of this, but that's where the magic happens. And it sets a precedent for, you think about a multi-generational workforce. Imagine you could leverage the native digital talent and the fact that they're incredibly savvy when it comes to digital technologies and picking up how to work with these. What if you create those environments where you've got students, so to speak, or entry-level hires or interns who become the guides to help your older workforce through the creation of something like a book, a bot, a merch line, whatever that product might be. You guys collectively learn this. So when the next update does come out, you've now got a model for how to train that technology instead of people feeling like they're always behind.
Do you feel that, and this goes to both of you, that is the magic of having teachers with students? And what about parents? Because there are a lot of people in the world, whether it's parents, professionals, teachers, whoever, who literally are afraid, and it's only because they haven't touched it. And I personally, advocate for understanding AI so that people can understand the possibilities, but also understand this really important moment in time that we're in right now, where what we do today, like in the next couple of years, and we have no longer than that, how that is shaping the trajectory of our future. So what do you think it takes to really help people kind of cross that fear chasm?
First of all, I think what you said at the beginning about teachers, I think the definition of a teacher is changing, right? It's more about being a mentor, about guiding. I mean, that's what DeSkills does perfectly, is that it's very different from what you would think about with the traditional school system. Hannah has an amazing place where she provides resources, weekly meetings, but she gives students the tools to experiment on their own, to build their own path, because there isn't always, one right way to do things, especially with parents and everyone being, fearful of things. My own mom was just like, I don't really even know about AI, all this stuff. Mahea just does it. She's the AI person. And I know my grandpa loves to call it OWL. He called it OWL for the longest time. No, it's AI. But so we always talked about it. And I made my mom try it one day. And she was like, oh, I kind of like it. She's never gone back. Every day she has like ChatGPT on all of her tabs and her computers. And now, like, I haven't ever taught her about prompting any of that. Like, I came down one day and she was talking to ChatGPT. She went from asking it questions like she was talking to Siri or Google, to now she's like, if there's something with our cats, she'll be like, if you were a professional veterinarian who specialized in this, and I'm like, whoa, where did you learn this? But just by talking to AI, you figure things out. And so that's why I think the idea that getting over that fear it's now the most rewarding thing ever. Because like you said, in a couple years, totally different landscape that we're going to have. And so if people just get over their fear, like Hannah said, for like 10 minutes, you'll realize like, oh my God, it isn't even that bad. And then you'll also realize that like the AI that we have today, granted, it is developing very fast. Like they had something come out that AI can't even say the number of R's that are in the word, right? So there are a lot of things that will crush your fears, because I've asked it to help me with math. It gets like 1+1 wrong sometimes. And I'm like, oh my God. So you'll also realize that while it is helpful, like it isn't at the point, it'll crush your sense of worry, because you're like, okay, well, this thing is very helpful for me. It's like an assistant, but it's not too scary yet. It makes a lot of mistakes to the point where like, it's okay.
Hannah, dig a little deeper into, give us a little shock and awe about some of what teens are doing today with AI, thanks to DiskSkills. I mean, like building impact portfolios in just a few weeks, or writing books in a day, or hey, I think you said 90 minutes. So yeah, share a little bit about that.
Gosh, I'm so passionate about this. So it's like part of my DNA at this point, and I'm so glad Mahea can articulate what she's done as well and bring some life to this. At the core of it, our mission is every student AI powered. And what that means, it's very intentionally constructed that way, with student first, because it is about the human. It's about taking students and AI powering them to achieve their goals, their dreams, their aspirations. What I find is that when we look at AI in, like, that's why I love the work you're doing, Heidi, is we look at the human first, and then we ask, instead of fearing this tool, how do we give every human an advantage into maybe a launch pad into achieving their goals? But what I found, and the reason we started DiskSkills, is that we're seeing this gap emerge, right? So I want to create AI-powered students like Mahea, who've got DiskSkills. They are creating their own internships, their own income, their own books, their own merch lines, real impact projects that impact the world. But the gap is something we call the AI fluency gap. Now, this is distinctive from AI literacy, because when most of the conversations around AI literacy are happening, a lot of them tend to focus on literacy in the traditional sense, becoming acquainted enough with the technology to be able to use it, maybe like Google 2.0, not feeling fearful about it. DiskSkills takes the next level. We bring in real impact projects. So instead of using AI just for the sake of it, or instead of being someone per se who's going into an AI career, we instead view the world as all of us are going to have AI careers to some extent. And we have to be fluent in how to use this technology to power ourselves to achieve our dreams and goals. So what our students are doing is they're taking all of this information, all of the capabilities of AI, and they're channeling that toward creating real impact projects that they can use to build a portfolio. So to give you an example, and then Mahea can share what she's done, we have a student in a current cohort who's a pre-med student, or she's not yet. She will be. She's currently 15. And Karen is, she's interested in the medical field. She wants to make an impact there. So her impact project during our Impact 10, which is a 10-week sprint, where students go from very few digital skills and just like some creativity and curiosity to, by the end of 10 weeks, their goals are to have a completed impact project, potentially even a paid impact project with a real small business that they've landed for themselves, and at least 50 or more LinkedIn connections. So we get them on LinkedIn, they're sharing about their journey, adding value. And the fourth piece is that we want students to leave with all the skills to continue creating these types of opportunities for themselves. So Karen, pre-med student, her impact project was to build an AI chatbot for a local pharmacy that goes on their website and answers questions as soon as people come up. So here we are on week 7 of Impact 10, and Karen sold this project to this local pharmacy built and launched the chatbot, and she's never previously done anything like this. That's the power of Diskills. I'll take it one step further before I hand this over to Mahea, because her journey is absolutely phenomenal. But inside the school system, we have a series of incredible programs that we call Expedition AI, where students as young as 7th or 8th grade are able to create things like their own books and become published authors, or their own merch lines, their own cookbooks. We have all these fun projects that kids do in the classroom. And the example I described a few minutes ago of the teachers and students coming together in these like living laboratories, like joint learning experiences, that's what every single program looks and feels like. And my goal is I want the kid who never would have signed up for an AI club, who would have thought that reaching out and learning AI was impossible, to feel comfortable and like they can create something of value. With every sort of learning challenge you can imagine, literally creating things in a matter of minutes or hours or weeks. I'll just share one quick story. We have a student who's 11 years old. His name is Pavit. And Mahea knows Pavit now because he's just so phenomenal.
He is the brightest kid ever. Oh my God. I was impressed. I was like, he's 11?
Yeah,
if
he's 11 years old.
That's impressive.
Everyone that has met him now keeps saying Pavit for president because he's just so phenomenal. Pavit's 11. He became a published author this summer during an AI adventure camp that we hosted, which is essentially Expedition AI in a shorter format. And this kid, he publishes his book, which is about water conservation, something he's really passionate about. And after the sprint, he took those to skills. And what does he do? He writes a second book, publishes it, and then teaches all his friends how to write their own books. And he's 11. Like, that's the type of just incredible work that kids get excited about. The possibilities are unlocked that they may have never thought they had the potential to do or to be. That's the type of awesome things that students are doing. And Mahea has to share her story because she is just phenomenal.
So like you mentioned, right, going from a failing GPA to being a business owner. And I think...
a 4.3 GPA, if I'm not
last
mistaken.
Quarter, it was something like that. Yeah. So the whole, I mean, there's a lot I could go about the school system in its entirety. And just like Hannah, I'm going to be graduating with my bachelor's shortly after I graduate high school. But one of the things that was a turning point for me was being able to know that it's possible. So I grew up with undiagnosed ADHD, another issue in itself, women getting diagnosed later. But I was, thank God, both my parents are psychologists and saw it in me. And yeah, that was nice. And so growing up, though, it was always feeling like, you know, you have this sense of being off. You're in the school system. Things don't resonate. And then I can go home for 10 minutes and what I can learn off a YouTube video and be like, oh my God, I know this so much better. So I had to learn independently. I had to school myself, but I always felt like something was wrong with me because I was like all my peers, everyone else, like my mom never forgets to do stuff. My sister's all good. I just keep forgetting this. I leave this here. And it was over time, it makes you feel like, is something off? What is this? And so I kind of just gave up at some point. I was like, what's the point in me putting all these hours of working if something's just wrong with me? So fast forward, I eventually, again, did the inner work, did the subconscious stuff, understood that I am just built differently. But one big game changer for me was AI. Now, not that AI brought this big change to my life, but what AI showed me was that it's possible, right? You have so many kids with learning disabilities. And I think one of it is it eventually creates a mental roadblock as like, no matter what I do, I'm never going to be as good. I'm never going to reach that level. And what AI has allowed me to see is that like, okay, I can tell AI like, give me a quiz so we figure out how I learn, do all this. And eventually AI has gotten me to know that I just learn differently. I can use AI to make my learning like games, make it super stimulating. And there's nothing wrong with the way I learn. And then once I realized that AI allowing me to personalize the things that I do, personalize the way I go about things, and help me create an environment for my brain to thrive, allowed me to do college and high school, to start my own business, to start doing cold calling. Like any time that I felt like the way that someone else on YouTube is doing it doesn't resonate with me, I could sit back and tell myself like, okay, that doesn't mean that it's not possible because they have a different set of experiences. They have a whole entire different life and I have my own. So how can I make this work for me? And that's the beauty of AI, like Hannah said, is that like even Diskills, working with a wide range of kids with totally different, maybe learning disabilities or amazing, like the a big spectrum that they're dealing with. But the thing is that when it's AI powered, you have something that's so personable that every student can have the same almost experience, same joy from learning that we hope all kids to have. And I think that's what makes AI such a game changer, is it's so, personable.
Yeah, I can really appreciate that. My daughter, who's now 29, she's dyslexic. And, the strategies that she was taught early on, of course, helped. But nothing helps more than being super customized and personalized. And I think that is one of the beauties that AI brings. Everybody has their own sort of personal tutor in their pocket now. You touched upon Mahia just now in passing. You said doing sort of the inner work. I believe that the inner work is the work to be done right now, honestly, because the technology is going to develop on its own eventually. But what the difference between what our life is today and then what our future is tomorrow is, again, kind of how humans evolve in that time, how humans develop in that time. Tell me a little bit about sort of that, what you think others need to know or do in order to sort of be more connected with who they are as humans.
Again, this is one of those things I could talk about forever, but to sum it up, right? Everything that we do as people, we're kind of on autopilot in a way, right? Because we have all these different past experiences. A lot of the thoughts we think on a daily basis are the thoughts we thought yesterday, the day before that, and the day before that, trace years back, right? And so only like I think it's like 2-3%, some kind of small number is the actual amount of conscious thoughts that we have, and not just in our programming. And so our brains are kind of like a computer. And so taking a step back and saying, like, I can program my own brain. And if I don't program it, it's going to program itself, And I think we all live in a totally different world. They always say, like, if I'm going down the freeway, right, and I ask with my mom or something, and ask my mom, how many red cars pass by? How many white vans? She's going to be like, I don't know. But if I tell her, for every white van you see, I'll give you $200, she's going to be counting and actively looking for those things, right? And so, especially in today's world, I think people think that we're all born a certain way, we're all cut out to be something when we're really not. And then you have to frame yourself in the mind to see opportunities, to see different things, especially with AI. Because when you get yourself in that creative mindset, you're able to see the things you can use AI for. And even today, I see things that I never would have saw in the world a couple years ago, and being able to understand myself, to sit with myself, to one of the things that I love, it's called shadow work, where you ask yourself these interesting questions. The one that was a turning point for me, I think I was like 12. And I had like bad mental health issues from like 9 to like 13, 14, and probably earlier than that. I was a super anxious kid. But I loved self-help. I watched all the TED Talks. I loved taking notes, but I loved putting it into action more. And so I was journaling one time, and the prompt that I had found online that I wanted to try was, if I had lived my entire life, like I lived my days, how would I feel about my entire life, right? Because that really is what our life is. We just repeat the same day and day and day, and we don't think about it much. And I sat with that and I thought about it, and I was like, wow. And so now I always think about that, right? As like, if this was my last day, or if I want to live my entire life like this day, how am I going to live out this day? What opportunities am I going to seek out? What am I going to do? If I was this type of person, how would I act? And so realizing that we get to choose who we're going to be. It's not finding who we are, it's creating who we are. That's something that I think everyone needs to realize, especially in the age of AI. It is something new, it is something scary, but learning to harness that can really change your entire world and make things easier.
It's so interesting just how wise you are at 17 and how much introspection you've already done. And I think, for listeners who are parents, who are either fearful or excited about the world that their kids are walking through and will enter as professionals, hearing from someone like you is really amazing. And I've been doing a lot of introspection around this question, which is, in the age of AI and looking forward, say 3 to 5 years, when a lot of our work will be automated, where a lot of systems will be automated, what becomes the role of the human? And more importantly, what are we going to do with ourselves when we're not as busy as we are right now.
Exactly.
I'm a firm
busy
believer
doing the busy work, right?
Exactly. Yes, because I'm a firm believer that because of this AI era, we're either headed toward one of two extremes. And I don't use the word extreme lightly. We're either headed toward the dark ages, a reset of the dark ages, where, I fully will admit, even as someone who loves AI and uses it, that if it is used wrongly and for evil purposes, we really could reset ourselves to the dark ages. So that is one possibility.
Because
the
it will
other
learn
possibility
that that's what we want. It'll be trained that
exactly.
way then. Yeah.
Exactly. Or we look at the other extreme, which is we could enter a new renaissance where humans have the opportunity to become the most human versions of ourselves, where we can imagine all of us living life like an 1800s family of royalty, where we have the time to paint and to draw and to spend time with our kids and go on walks. I don't think humans, as we currently exist, are ready for that type of renaissance. We're so used to filling every moment with another dopamine hit. When we have silence, we're so used to filling it by scrolling on TikTok. We are not used to, as humans, understanding what it's like to rest. And I speak that for myself as well. So Heidi, as I reflect on this question of introspection and having to do that work, I believe one of the most critical preparation points for us as humans is understanding that if the world looks like that new renaissance, we're going to have an entirely new set of skills to reacquire from our great grandparents who lived a completely different lifestyle that we're going to have to reacquaint ourselves with.
What do you both see as some of those innately human skills that we have this opportunity to really double down on?
Yeah, what do you think?
Oh, you want me? Okay. Like she was saying, I mean, just it's a totally different landscape, right? And I mean, myself included, are just used to the go, having the work, having all of this. And a lot of us, right, we think of work as, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go to middle school for high school. High school prepares me for college, which prepares me for a job, which prepares me for retirement. Then when I'm 60 to like the rest, 80 or whatever, I can do the little mundane things, walk my dog around, go to the park, but a lot of us do secretly want that life. I think it's the human nature desire. We want to travel the world. We want to do all of these things. But then again, there's that mindset shift. I was reading in an article about like the worst AI doomsday scenarios. And one of them said the worst might actually be that it does us so much good. We don't know what to do with ourselves anymore. We feel like there's no purpose. It takes away our jobs and people feel robbed. And you could be studying for a degree and the next thing you know, your job is gone. I don't think AI is going to take away all of our jobs. I think if there is so much pushback, I think honestly that us as humans, I mean, there already is so much pushback to AI right now that's stopping it from really, I feel like, getting to its potential. I mean, Apple and the Vision Pro, I mean, that was a great thing, but it was so expensive. There's so much pushbacks and never really took off. So there's a lot of things that I think the public does decide on. And so I think our jobs might just become heavily AI powered or automated. And then we might find a way to get back to working or doing this. But I think hopefully, I'm hoping that we understand the power of creativity, of human connection, of being deserving of that freedom. We went from like the tractor and all of us working as farmers to all of a sudden being able to have a variety of jobs. Now, Gen Z, right? Your job can be an influencer, you can be a YouTuber, you can do all these different things. So I think my generation and Gen Alpha will have kind of more of an easy way getting into that, because our generation is all about the life. We don't really like the work. But I think the key qualities is adaptability, creativity, being critical thinking for sure, and then being able to look at your surroundings and look at yourself and say, how can I make the best of this? How can I, with my knowledge, with what I love, just change my environment for the better? It doesn't have to be a job. You can garden, you can, little things like that. Just enjoy the mundane.
I would completely agree, Mahia. And I see the world in sort of two different levels or layers at this moment. So the skills, as we call them, the skills that I could see being the most helpful for humans in the short term. And by short term, I mean 5 to 10 years from now. If we're talking about an evolving landscape of work and how we think and how we play, what I see is students like Mahea, and I know, Heidi, you would agree with me, and thousands of other companies that I work with, speak with, etc., tell me that the qualities Mahea just described and that she embodies are the ones that are going to be most critical for humans. It's a mindset of being AI powered, of seeing impact gaps in the world and solving them. It's a mindset of, instead of pulling from knowledge of the past, to be able to use AI to give you context to make decisions. It's being connected with humans. It's being the ability to take autonomy over your work and your actions. Those are the sorts of skills I see. But if we look even further, right, to 15, 20 years down the road, and I don't know about these timelines specifically, but imagining a world where AI is truly not just everywhere, but we do live in a sort of world where robots are doing a lot of the manual labor, where humans, might not even work more than a day a week, or we have huge populations of humans who don't work in the traditional sense. And this is a podcast, but I just use air quotes because I think work is going to shift entirely, where work might, well, I'll give you an example. I just watched a really great show, and I'm now blanking out on the name of it. It's a show with the guy who created Family Guy, and it was essentially, I'll look up the name in a second, but it's essentially a show set in the future, and it imagines a world. It's of course sci-fi, but it imagines a world where things like food, all the necessities, are printed from essentially nothing. And I don't actually think that type of world is as far off in terms of our resource efficiency and things like that. So the reason I bring this up is because in that world, the characters had to redefine how they viewed human value. And for them,
and
their
currency,
identity, exactly, because their currency and their identity was not based on what they could produce like it currently is right now. It was instead based on their character, who they were. It was based on their reputation. And that shift in currency is something I think humans are not ready for yet, and that we're going to have to do the work to prepare for. Because if our currency shifts from where we produce something and where we're all strung up by the basic necessities of food, living, shelter, all of that, and we shift to currency being your reputation, humans are not, we're not ready for that. We haven't lived in a world like that. So long story longer, I would say we need to keep a close pulse on that over the next, coming years, because even in Mahea and I's lifetime, by the time, we have grandkids, I could see a world where their entire value is determined based on reputation, and their identity is completely different from even what she and I see now.
We're gonna be like back in the day or something.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so interesting. I mean, you two are digital natives, not AI natives. You're already, passe the older generation with a very different mindset. I just want to kind of touch upon that before we get into the last question. This concept of this new identity for humans. How do you see us keeping that human connection, right? You both use the word connection when you were talking about a world that you could envision in the future. We're already seeing a lot of disengagement between humans through social media and whatnot. What do you think needs to be done in the meantime? And I often speak of this point in time as the messy middle, right? We're kind of transitioning from one world to another, and the next world could be potentially better than our wildest dreams, but in the meantime, there's going to be this messy middle of major adjustment. And Mahea, you use the word adaptability being important. How do you think we can really get to keep that human connection and really get to the core of what it means to be human?
I think it's interesting to watch what's happening with Mahea and I's generation of native digitals, where there's certain movements towards things like cottage core and going back to flip phones. And there's a lot of these sort of oxymoronic seeming movements happening with our generation because, and maybe I'm an optimist, but I believe at the core of every human is there's something ingrained in us that craves human connection, and that we're lost in a lot of ways without that. I'm married. I've been married for a few years. My husband's wonderful. And we're in a small group of other families. And we meet, on a weekly basis with these other couples, and we're doing life together. And if I know for myself, if I didn't have that type of group in my life, not only would a huge part of like my DNA or what my DNA pulls me toward be missing, I would also experience far worse, mental health challenges, connectedness challenges than I do. So at the core of it, I would say as a native digital myself, I do see a world where social media has pulled people apart, so to speak, or that we're more lonely than before. But I also think a lot of those studies are being created by people who are not natively digital and who are not seeing many of the positive things happening with that. What is being perceived as lack of connection is actually us just connecting in a different way. You might have, I love seeing Mahea's head nodding this viciously because I have a younger brother, right? He's 18. He has friends who are between 15 and 20. And we know guys connect side by side as humans, right? They're not going to go have coffee like maybe Mahea and I would do and feel like we had a great conversation. They're going to go out and go fishing, or they're going to go out and go do something like side by side. That's how they connect. So what do we see in the digital world? We see guys connecting by gaming. We see them sitting not side by side physically, but in digital spaces where they are across the world, potentially in different time zones, connecting in a way that they feel is connection. And I personally know that many of my brother's friends he's made online, they have met up in person to do something. So many would say I'm an optimist, but I think that it's those types of qualities we should actually be celebrating in native digitals and encouraging native digitals to think about now that AI is here and there are ways to use it that are harmful to humans, like it being a sole source of mental health support. We don't want that. We want students and young people to know that they need to reach out to humans in their life, but that the world of digital media and communication can be a method to get there, and that it's not throw all of this out as a solution. So I tend to offer that bridge, and maybe Mahea can speak more to this, but some of my very best friends I know now, I've met through the digital world. And it takes a little more intentionality to get to know someone. But look at all three of us here. Mahea and I met through the digital world. Heidi, we've never met in person, right? And yet I feel more connected to Mahea than a lot of people I grew up around here in my physical area. So I would say that with a little intentionality, that being the key word, intentionality, we can create spaces where the loneliness divide is not as present, but where we are actively reaching out through any means to support one another.
The way that I got to where I am, to all these different things, I heavily credit the online world. I scanned a QR code to join Hannah's program, and I just was like, I need some extracurriculars. I haven't done anything. This looks cool. It's kind of right on my alley. And I met so many amazing kids, online, and it's crazy because we are often so stuck in our bubble that social media gives you a perspective. It shows you worldviews. It allows you to see that things are different. There are, of course, lots of concerns, right? You have algorithms so that two different people see the world in a totally different way. But the truth is, right, I think a lot of it is my whole self-introspect, my journey from where I started getting into that at like 12 years old was like YouTube, seeing TED Talks, seeing people inspire me, talk about their journeys. And I was like, I love this. And so I got onto that side of the algorithm. And then when I was like 12 and 13, I was watching TED Talks, self-help, people talking about how they, make money, financial tips. So like the way that social media can be used for good is, I think, so much more outweighs the bad. It helps us socially connect better. I have a friend I've made in COVID that I still have today, like from 2020, I met her. And I think, like Hannah said, a lot of the friends now, the way we do things, I think they said, I saw a statistic that said like a crazy amount, I think it was way over it was majority. Everything else was like in the small percentages that our generation meets people is through dating apps or apps to find other friends. And in essence, that is kind of sad, but it really just shifts the way that we connect with one another. And I think that, like Hannah said, older generations are quick to maybe dismiss that or think about it as bad because it's just not what they're used to. But social media, all that, it's just a new method for connection. It's helps you get opportunities. I mean, how easy is it now to find a job or to connect with people? We have LinkedIn. You have all these other different places where you can find people who are like you. So if you're in another country, weird circumstance, you can find people who are like you, have like-minded goals, can uplift you. Hannah has given me like amazing opportunities, amazing lessons. And I just met her in person and I've known her since like the beginning of this year. So it's amazing really what connecting with other people can do. And I think the digital world is just a new and different method to do that.
So beautifully spoken, both of you. I'm going to end with a question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, we use the phrase "be the prompt" here at the Humanity Code. It's an invitation, an encouragement, actually, or an urging for people to really be aware of the role that they play in this moment in time, where we are shaping AI. Right, we're literally raising this baby collectively, and teaching it. We talk about being the prompt. So how do you each see that people can be the prompt to create a future with AI that we actually all want to live in?
I first of all, love the concept of be the prompt. I'm thinking back to a particular example that this is something I did, and now I'm going to, for the first time ever, Heidi, this is now going to be the Be the Prompt coffee shop challenge. So here's what I did. This was right back when AI was first becoming a conversation, right? When GPT released. So we've had about 2 years now. I got on this technology and I started doing the simple things people begin with, like write an essay. It's like, how good is this technology really? I was sitting in this one coffee shop in my hometown called Pisgah Brewing. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but they get a lot of traffic in from, people on their way to their construction jobs or small business owners. So I'm sitting in this coffee shop, and I don't remember exactly how I found this moment, but I was up like ordering a drink and somehow got into a conversation with one of the gentlemen who came in, who's probably in his 50s or 60s, owned a construction company. And I just asked him, have you used ChatGPT before? He said, no. So I just started in that moment becoming a little bit of a missionary.
Evangelist,
a little bit. He thought I was probably crazy, but I was like, I've got to show you something. Like, you're a business owner. Tell me a process that you tend to do on a repeated basis. And I think the example he gave me was sending emails out after a job is completed with a summary of all of the milestones and the project costs, as well as an invoice. So I said, give me 5 minutes. I'm going to show you how you can automate that whole thing. He sat down, and in 5 minutes, we used AI to automate that process for him. And he walked out of that coffee shop like, I'm going to be using this every day. Poof. So here's Hannah's coffee shop challenge. Next time you're standing in line and you strike up a conversation with the barista or with someone in line, just ask them, what do you do? And what's something in your day that takes way too much time? And just ask them, like, be the evangelist to do what I did and to start planting the seeds of positivity. Because at the end of the day, the moment that we're in right now, not even thinking about 10 years down the road, 20 years, is we're responsible, like you said, Heidi, about nurturing the baby. We're responsible for making sure we create that renaissance and not the dark ages. And it's the one person to one person connection right now that I believe is so critical to shaping the way that people think. If they don't know how this personally connects with them and their goals, they're going to be more apt to be the person who looks at a newspaper and how bad AI is and starts voting in that direction, or who starts creating policies or processes or procedures, even if it's not at the government level, in their own companies, with their own families and their children. They influence that conversation. So be the coffee shop evangelist, and I think we'll make a dent in the world.
I feel like the role that I've kind of stepped into, like unwillingly almost, is being the teen evangelist maybe, and then showing other teens that it's possible. Again, like I said before, just being able to understand that something is possible, which is made a lot easier with AI. Sometimes I am like, I don't know everything about business. I'm studying it, but I don't know everything. And I'm like, what does this tax thing mean? What does this mean? And I can ask AI and it can make the information available to me. And so I see so many people, a lot of the issues that, again, inner work that we struggle with are just mental blocks. My mom was a therapist, and she hates writing. She thinks she's a bad writer. She writes fine. But she was like, I have to write this email. I have to write this thing to a patient. What if it sounds weird? And what if and I told her, I was like, okay. And she spent hours just at her computer. She's like, oh my God, I don't want it. And I told her, like, just ask AI. Like I said, ask AI to have like unbiased opinion about it, right? And you'll realize that a lot of what you're doing is worrying, is overthinking, is all this stuff. And I think that I personally believe one of the best uses of AI is to show yourself that it's possible, that it's easier said than done, to break those big things into small, manageable steps. Sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I don't know historically what I'm supposed to do after I have a lead, I called them, now what? And I'm just like, oh. And so most people would sit there in paralysis, like, oh my God, this is hard. I don't know how to do a business. And sometimes I sit in paralysis too for like an hour, and I'm like, oh. And then I go on the ChatGPT or I go onto something and I say, what do you think, based on what you know about me, is the best course of action? And so what I think AI does so well is it gets us humans out of our own rut. It's not human, and that is the weird side of it, but that's the beauty of it, is that it can help us in the parts that we struggle in. And so being self-aware to realize that, like, for me, sometimes when I first started my business, I was like, I have never written a professional email. I've only written school emails very briefly. So I would have to talk to AI, like, how do I even write a professional email without sounding artificial, without doing all of that? And usually I would look at that and be like, this is not cut out for me. I don't know how to do this. But being able to have a mentor by me, if I didn't have a Hannah, I could go to this ChatGPT and be like, hey, help me out so that I can reach my dreams and my goals, despite all that. So I think what's most important is realizing that AI can do so much, but most importantly, help you reach your goals more efficiently, faster, and help you break those big things into small, manageable steps.
What a beautiful way to end. Thank you both
Thank you so
much, Mahealani and Hannah, for sharing your wisdom. You are clearly both old souls under the youth. This may be the age of intelligence and artificial intelligence at that, but it needs to be the age of wisdom. So your perspectives are truly a gift. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Heidi. This was a blast, and I can't wait to hear your perspectives as well.
Thank you. Lots of opportunity to do so. Thank you for joining us on the Humanity Code Conversations. Remember, our future with AI is being written now and by us. Let's ensure it's a story that honors and elevates our shared humanity.